It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Robin Mines. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Abiuchendo. Thanks a lot for joining us. Another week gone by. A lot still happening in Nigeria and across the world. The COVID-19 pandemic is hitting the world harder than ever. There's a spike in a lot of countries. The numbers are going crazy. And even here in Nigeria, there seems to be conversations around the fact that people need to be a lot more careful because the Harmattan season is coming very windy. There's going to be things blowing around even more. So I hope you're keeping safe wherever you are. But across the world, the United States finally, the media called the elections saying that former Vice President Joe Biden has been elected President of the United States. The current President Trump seems to say that he's going to be pulling this all the way to the end in the court of law. So we'll be watching that space to see how the leader of the free world emerges on January 20th, 2021. But today we're still going to be talking NSARS here on the show. It's a conversation that I said will keep going on for as long as it's in the front burner of national conversation. And as we know, it is. The judicial panels of inquiry are being held across the country in different states. And there's a lot of talk about NSAS protesters being arrested, being held without trial and all of that. But we're going to be talking about hopefully how we get out of that conundrum and move forward with things. I have you with me, Farouk Abbas. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Ebuka.
So yes, the 5 for 5 demands was one of what the protesters put forward at the start of the protest to government, saying, do these 5 things and we'll be off the streets. First, of course, at the top of the list was disbanding SARS, which government did, even though most people said it was for the 4th time or whatever the case was. Now there was talk about the fact that government has said they would, act on the others. Where would you say we are with regards to the 5 for 5 demands by the protesters and what government's sort of body language and words seem to say to you?
Well, thank you for your question. From federal government's body language, it appears that the federal government is very conscious of the demands and they are very conscious about meeting those demands. But at the same time, their body language also shows that they were rattled by the protest and they didn't expect that young Nigerians will mobilize themselves in the numbers in which they've done. And like you rightly alluded to in the course of your introduction, there's been arrests. We heard that the CBN commenced a lawsuit by which the accounts of certain protesters were frozen and a protester was about to travel and a passport was withheld even though it was eventually released. So it appears that the government seems to have been rattled by the protest and they want to prevent the protest from happening again. And in their own belief, they have the view that the best way to prevent the protest from happening in the future is to discipline, in quotes, those who spearheaded this particular protest. So from their body language, from the lawsuits that have been filed and the freezing of accounts, it appears that they want to go hard against the passive sponsors of the protesters. But if something is very clear, what is very clear is that the government has been forced to listen to Nigerians and they know that they must take actions because the panels going on all across the country shows that the government is listening, and the mere fact that the president sent all the ministers and federal government officials to go back to their constituencies to go and engage with their constituents shows that they are bound to listen. So I believe very strongly, and I also read in the news recently that INEC is planning to commence voter registration last year. Earlier in the year, nobody was talking about voter registration. And under the law of INEC, the regulation INEC has for voter registration, the regulation says that every year we must have voter registration. But you see that when INEC is defending their budget before the Senate, they never talk about voter registration.
Until
the only
it's
time
election.
we do voter registration is when the election is closed.
Yeah.
When it's 6 months to election, they talk about voter registration. But this year, they started talking about voters registration. So they are listening, and I believe that they can only increase the volume, the pace at which they listen to Nigerians.
Let me go to Skype now. We're being joined by Chidi Okereke, who's a digital expert. Chidi, if you can hear me, I want to get your take on the aftermath of this protest so far. There's been, like Farouk said, accounts have been closed. People have been prevented from traveling. People have been literally taken from their homes and arrested and are still being held. Is there any argument for that? Looking at things from the side of government. I mean, if you hold a successful protest against the government, is there any conversation that can be had to say, okay, let me find out how this worked? Were they trying to topple government? Because there's a lot of people who have said, as much as the conversations or the protests, were peaceful, there were talks of infiltration. And, is it possible that government is confused as to what the message was, which is why they're doing what they're doing?
The government is wicked and dishonest. It's really just proof that they were never ever about meeting the demands of the protesters. They have shown that they are insincere. They have shown that they have their own agenda and they are sticking to it. They have shown that what they want to do is what they want to do, which is to make sure that Nigeria is a nation of impunity and lawlessness. And it's really, really their fault. For the records, the protests were not hijacked. They were not infiltrated. They were attacked at first by law enforcement agencies, attacked by soldiers, attacked by sponsored talks before, when after the Lekki massacre happened, people who were not part of the protest now went to the street and started looting and all that. So the protests were hijacked. Sorry, the protests were attacked. They were not hijacked. And the government has shown time and time again that they are insincere and they are about the country continuing the way it is, which is basically lawlessness from the very top. And it's really, really unfortunate.
So where do things stand now with the 5-for-5 demands? Is this something that protesters are still actively pursuing and keeping government in check with? Or has this all overtaken events now? Because, we saw during the week at some point where members of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry in Lagos sort of protested and, left the sitting, and sitting had to stop at some point. Is this a deadlock, you think?
5-for-5 as a concept, I've said it on your show, I've said it several times, that as far as I'm concerned, 5-for-5, I'm not interested in that 5-for-5. There are key things we've asked for. The key things, some of them the government has flouted some of them. Now they set up judicial panels of inquiry and all that, and it's a step in the right direction, no doubt. How sincere are they about, doing the actual work and making sure that the panel, whatever their conclusions are, they are taking into cognizance in whatever they decide to do. Will they ensure that witnesses are protected? Will they ensure that those people who have been recommended, who punishments have been recommended for, actually punished? So the demands have not been met. Are we still pursuing it? Now, for the time being, we're deprioritizing physical protests. We're not going out to the streets because we cannot guarantee people's safety. The president in his speech has basically threatened us. The body language of the army, the body language of the police officers. The IG of police, I saw a message he sent to all units and told them that they can, basically kill somebody and nothing will happen. So at the end of the day, we're deprioritizing physical protests, but the demands continue. Behind the scenes, we are strategizing. We're trying to figure out ways to, educate people on the way forward, how to be involved in politics, how to be politically conscious, socially conscious, and how to demand better of their government. So it is work in progress. We're just not going to the streets for now. When it's time for us to go to the streets, we definitely will again.
I'll come back to you, Chidi. Let me come back to you, Farouk. There's been a lot of talk about, there's a difference in the way police and security operatives are dealing with Nigerians right now. A lot of communities almost seem to have no police officers anymore. Or people have said, in Lagos, we saw an entire week or two where there was no police presence in the streets. What are you noticing a difference in your area, in just the way the police is dealing with Nigerians since the EndSARS protests?
Yes, I've noticed significant difference in the way not only the police, the various security personnel are dealing. Yeah. Initially, they were not on the streets, but now they are coming back and they are much more professional now. They know that anybody can speak up about anything now, and they are very responsive. I deal with the police a lot, and I can see that they are very concerned now that Nigerians can speak up about anything, and they are becoming more professional. And if you see the communication now, the IG issues statements regularly. Even the army, they try to cooperate with Nigerians. At the panel hearing we're having in Lagos, look at the army officials. They were prepared. They were giving their presentation in PowerPoint. In the past, they would not give detailed presentations. They won't talk about their, So there's that openness now. There's that willingness to communicate. So I'm saying it, and I think gradually, they were not out before because they were scared for their lives and all that. But I think gradually they are coming out and they are reaching out to CDAs, discussing with community development associations to see how they can collaborate together. So I've noticed a positive improvement.
Yeah, but in spite of that, there's been, alleged reports of, still police brutality. I even saw a video today, something talking about something from yesterday. People have spotted members of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad in certain parts of the country still being in operation. Does it make you wonder what's still going on?
Oh no, that's not surprising. When you have a problem that is endemic, you don't just expect a knee-jerk approach or a quick fix solution. So when you have a problem that is foundational, we can't just expect 100% change overnight. So there are still some bad eggs, certainly. So what happens now is for us to fish out those bad eggs. In the past, when a bad egg commits a crime or an offense, nothing is done. It just goes scot-free. So now there's a panel, there's a way to report. The new Police Act gives out procedure on how you can complain against the police. So if you have a video on a police officer who brutalized citizens or who engaged in extortion and all that, simply do a report. And by the time you report to the police this time around, they are going to act on it. In the past, yes, they were not really firm on it, but now they are very firm. So I don't expect brutality to go away. I don't expect harassment to go away totally. It will reduce significantly, but it's still going to be with us for a very long time because you have to reorientate them. Some of them need to go for psychological tests. Some of them need to go for a lot of tests. They need to be prepped up and all that. So it doesn't just happen overnight. So we should still expect pockets of harassment here and there. But when we notice it, let's record it and let's make complaints. When they don't respond, put it up on social media, write to the IG, copy the chief of staff, copy everybody you need to copy. They will respond immediately.
That's almost scary. But Chidi, let me come to you now, Chidi. Do you have faith in these judicial panels that are being set up? Do you have faith that it will yield any results? Can you unmute your mic and start over? Are you here? You can.
Sorry, I got that now. So I was going to say something about what Abbas said. I don't think the police is better now, even a fraction better now. A few days ago, I saw a video of a soldier saying, "I am going to kill you and nothing will happen." Nothing has changed at all. Nothing has changed. So even though we all understand that things will not change overnight, they are not even acting like anything is changing at all. Do I have faith in the judicial panel? Let's do it. Some of the older people especially have said that we refuse to come to the table. I want the judicial panel to work, even though I have my doubts about it. I want it to work and I want to be proven wrong. But I also want a situation where at the end of everything, we can tell whoever wants to ask us why we didn't come to the table that, do you see what is happening? If a few days ago, CBN is still locking people's accounts, if Aaron's was picked up from his house in Lagos and taken to Abuja and has not been released till today, despite the fact that he has health issues, my brother, I don't know if that judicial panel has us at that. I think it's just them fulfilling all righteousness and acting like they're doing something. But let's do it. I encourage the youth representatives to continue sitting on the panel and protesting in their own way. Do I have faith in it? I'll give the answer for another time.
What have you seen that makes you say? I know you talked about a video where you said a soldier said, "I'll kill you and nothing would happen." Have you had it? Is it a case of you not seeing police enough on the streets, or the ones who are back on the streets are still doing the exact same thing?
Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. If you still see a policeman on the street, he's going to ask you for the things they normally ask you. "Oh God, do happy weekend for us," and all that. That is if you even see them. Yeah. So the ones that are there, they've not shown like they've shifted ground or they are trying to be better or anything. Their attitude remains the same. They're just more conscious of being recorded. And that's not what we're asking for. We're not asking you to be afraid of being recorded or anything. We're not asking you to, because what about the things they do when nobody is watching? What about how they treat people who do not have access to mobile phones and everything? So the ones I've seen, nothing has changed. And I've seen quite a few. Nothing has changed. I've seen videos. I saw a video of one slapping a matured man just because the matured man said he should not harass somebody else. And this is something that happened in the last 7 days. So what has really changed? They're just more wary of being recorded. And that's not changed for me.
So I want to ask both of you now, but starting with you, Chidi, then I'll come to you, Farouk. Because Mr. President, in that speech after the unfortunate incident in Lekki, did list out the 5 for 5 demands and said specifically that each one was being addressed, talked about the fact that SARS had been disbanded, talked about, the ongoing, conversation about mental and physical assessment of police officers, the setting up of judicial panels of inquiry, welfare of police officers, I know that as much as you say you are not particularly excited about the 5-for-5 demands. I mean, does the government saying that not give you any hope for things to come?
It is one thing to speak, and it's another thing to act. It is one thing for the president to hold a press conference and list out all these things and say all these things and say they're addressing this, they're addressing that. It's another thing for, like I said, somebody was actually picked up, his family was harassed and taken from Lagos to Abuja. How unconstitutional is that? So if you're saying, if you come on TV, because CNN or some of these other foreign media houses are going to carry it and say we're addressing the 5-for-5, so that our parents will feel like the president is working and all that. Meanwhile, people are being harassed. People are afraid of coming out to speak about their experiences. If that is the case, if that is happening, then there really isn't any reason for me to believe in how sincere you are, because you're very insincere. The president cannot say he's not heard that CBN is blocking people's accounts unconstitutionally. The president cannot say that he does not know. If he does not know, then, I mean, if he's not aware of all these things, then why is he our president? So if all these things are happening, the president is on TV saying another thing, it's either he has lost control of the entire system or he's just wicked.
Farouk, that's been one of the biggest issues a lot of people have had with, the entire just conversation that started on the 3rd of October, that snowballed into the protests and all of that. The action not matching the words. A lot of people have said, okay, the governors, the president, those in power keep saying, we have heard you, we will do this. But people on the streets are not seeing that reflected, which is why, we're still having these conversations. Why do you think that still is?
Yeah, it's a very clear case, and there's a loss of trust. And when you're in a fiduciary relationship with a party and he's not carrying out what he has promised to carry out, then you won't believe his body language, you won't believe his actions, if you won't even believe his words anymore. So what has happened is that government has given us a lot of false promises, a lot of fake promises in the past. They promised and they failed to act, and they keep changing the goalpost. If you Google any project now in Nigeria, you see that the completion date is always changing. You see that they keep on repeating expenses, renovating, paying billions of naira for kitchen and some very, very ridiculous expenses. So people have lost trust in the government. So the truth now is that no amount of sweet talks can persuade Nigerians. Nigerians want to see action. When the president read his speech, he said he has done trader money, something money, agro money. So that, I'm very connected to the grassroots, and I don't know anybody who has benefited from all these things. So when you said you spent 17 billion or 70 billion on palliatives, and you don't even know people around your family who has benefited from it or in your community, then there's a loss of trust. So once there's a loss of trust, the only thing left for the people is to vote and elect a leader whom they will believe in. But once people fail to believe in a leader, then there's nothing that leader can say from now to 10 years' time. It's not going to move the masses, because we keep reading about it in the papers. There's agro money, there's this, and nobody knows who are the people getting in. Even if you disburse 70 billion naira on palliatives, we should have the database of Nigerians who got all these things. Let us see their addresses, let us see their photographs, let us see it online. So when we see all these things, then we believe that government is working. But when the government is not transparent, you say you have given out something and we don't know who has gotten it, then so there's lack of trust. And when there's lack of trust, the only way you can bridge that gap is for you to perform. So action speaks louder than words. But when you keep on talking, people won't believe. So now, no matter the press conference the government has, Nigerians will not believe in them. All we need to see is action. Let's see that the roads are getting better, our youth are getting employed, and let us see them. But when you say you're creating unemployment, over 20 million Nigerian youths are unemployed. When we see that the numbers are reducing, then we start believing in the government. So no amount of press statements or social media or consultants will solve this problem. We need action, real, concrete action.
I think that's a very good way to wrap it up. Thank you very much, Farouk. Thank you very much, Chidi, for joining us today. This conversation, like I said, will continue to go on, and we definitely need to do things differently from the way they are done now. We'll take a break and be right back. Please don't go away.